Bem-vindos ao canal Predadores. Pronto para começar? Então, minha primeira entrevista é com meu amigo Mathew Tibbenham. O Mathew é um diretor que já trabalhou em Los Angeles, Nova York e hoje atua em Londres. Ele já trabalhou em grandes filmes como A Entidade, Livrai-nos do Mal e até teve uma pequena participação na aprovação do filme Doutor Estranho, da Marvel. O Mathew também é um grande amigo meu e eu tive a honra de produzir o primeiro filme dele como diretor, Surviving Confession, que hoje está disponível em mais de 60 países. O Mathew vai falar um pouco sobre o processo deles trabalhando com grandes diretores em Hollywood, como foi o encontro dele com a Marvel, e também vai contar pra gente como é a experiência dele de ser um diretor independente no mercado internacional. Confere aí! Mathew, thank you so much for doing this. You are my first guest.
Thanks. Yeah, very excited to be on your new show.
All right, thank you so much. Uma breve pausa para explicar quem é Scott Derrickson. O Scott é um diretor americano mais conhecido por filmes de horror, como A Entidade, Livrai-nos do Mal e O Exorcismo de Emily Rose. Ele também trabalhou com Keanu Reeves no filme O Dia em que a Terra Parou e mais recentemente ele fez o filme Doutor Estranho da Marvel. Esse cara era o chefe do Mathew. So you did work with Scott Derrickson for some time. Could you tell us about that process?
Yeah, I started out with Scott on the movie Sinister, starring Ethan Hawke, produced by Blumhouse Productions and Automatic Entertainment. Yeah, it was really great. It was one of those, small budget, big budget productions in my mind because it had Ethan Hawke and, Scott Derrickson directing. But it was like a $2.5 to $3.5 million budget, which was kind of perfect. It was shot in New York, so I started out just as Scott's assistant for like 3 days a week because they didn't have enough money to hire me full time. But after the first week, it was kind of like, oh wait, actually, yeah, you're doing really great. We need you full time. And at first, it was just getting Scott coffee, food, kind of the wonderful, fun assistant things, scheduling, being kind of a gatekeeper. But then, because it was such a low budget production at the time, they didn't have an editor, and Scott was like, hey, can you edit? I was like, sure. So I started editing some of the Super 8 movies in the film. If you've seen it, it's kind of like the scary kind of found footage type movies. And he loved it. And because I had also had experience with Apple, he goes, hey, you're really great at computers. Ethan Hawke in the movie does a lot of journalism research. Can you create the screen recordings for that? So I created all the screen recordings in the movie and worked with the graphic designer who kind of designed some of the fake web pages. And then I would make like a screen recording, and on set, Ethan Hawke would pretend he was actually researching. But that was all me that I made up. And then from that, I just kept doing more and more. And then finally, Scott wanted so many, like tons of insert shots of the computer, like him clicking on a button, just so that in editing, they could make it really either exciting or suspenseful. So he goes, could you come up with a shot list? So I came up with a shot list of like 100 shots on the computer. And then he goes, oh, actually, here's another 50 shots for all the second unit, like exterior shots. We shot snakes, we shot spiders, or maybe it was scorpions. And yeah, so it just kind of ballooned into me directing with the second unit, kind of uncredited, unfortunately, just because, again, they didn't have a budget to hire somebody to do that. I shot 150 shots in the movie with a little B cam second unit crew. So a lot of fun and really great.
Awesome. And after that, you gained his trust and you kind of started working at his office.
Yeah. Then after that, because that was in New York, and I did, I think I did such a good job, hopefully, that he was like, hey, do you want to come work with me in LA? And I said, sure. So moved to LA. Became his assistant, and it was really interesting because working on the set of the movie was really fun because he was really nice about, on set I'd be like, hey, why did you do this shot? Why did you do this? And I got to over here and working with the actors and then directing the second unit, so learning a ton. And I thought, oh, so much creative stuff I got to do on Sinister. I'll keep doing that. But then when I got to LA for the next year and a half, there was some fun stuff because a lot of times, I wrote coverage, so I'd get like the latest movie script. He was offered Divergent, before it came out. They wanted to reboot Highlander, so I got to read that script, and all this other cool movies, Mortal Instruments, that he would ask for my opinion, like, hey, what do you think about this? And then he'd be writing his own scripts, and I'd give him feedback on it. Or when he pitched for Divergent, we created this really cool kind of sizzle reel where he used it. It was like a 6 to 9 minute sizzle reel that kind of showed his vision for the movie. So he would pretty much be like, okay, I want these kind of pieces of music. I want this style. And at this moment, I want the music to swell. So it's like a crescendo. So it was really cool to work with him on that. And...
Pausa para explicação. Eu não tenho uma tradução para sizzle reel. No Brasil, eu já ouvi falar em monstro. É quando a gente pega clipes de vários outros filmes e monta para dar um feeling do filme que a gente quer ver. É muito comum hoje a gente encontrar na internet, por exemplo, filme da Liga da Justiça 2, e aí o pessoal pega um monte de clipe de outros filmes e séries e monta como se fosse um filme. Então os diretores de Hollywood de fato fazem isso para fazer o pitching para os estúdios. Então eles pegam vários filmes de clipes de filmes que já existem para passar esse feeling para o estúdio de como seria o filme que eles querem fazer.
I probably created, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 kind of sizzle reels / teaser trailers for movies he was pitching around. Got to go to different studios. And it was funny because you would think as a Hollywood film director that like he'd be on his next movie soon, but we finished up Sinister. The editing went well. I got to go to Fright Fest with him in Austin to premiere the movie, which was really fun. But then he kept getting announced that he was attached to direct a movie in the trades like every couple of months. And I was kind of like, great, we're going to be on another movie. And at one point it was supposed to be Goliath with The Rock. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then like a year went by, still nothing. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Why haven't we been on that movie? Finally, though, it was interesting. A movie called, at the time, Fear No Evil. I think it was, Fear No Evil. Eventually became Deliver Us from Evil. It was this movie that he had actually written for Jerry Bruckheimer and Sony Screen Gems a decade before, and then had gone through 3 or 4 major rewrites with different places. They finally gave it back to him and said, hey, do you want to rewrite this, or do you want to finally direct this? He said, sure. So we got to do that, and we went back to New York to go film it. And that was with Eric Bana, Joel McHale, Olivia Munn. It was kind of a supernatural detective movie. And on that movie, works a little bit more on the second unit, kind of did assistant stuff. And that was a big budget movie, which it was 30 million. So wow. 10 times the size of Sinister. Yeah. And what was interesting was on Sinister, and Scott wanted me to do the same kind of stuff I did on Sinister, some of the second unit, some of the more creative stuff. But it's interesting, when I found out was that on that kind of movie, they had enough money to pay people. So they could, instead of having some assistant who, I could do the work, they would have somebody who had decades of experience doing second unit. So I didn't get to do nearly as much on that movie. For people who want to work on these big budget movies, you either have to find your one niche and be like, this is who I am, and I'm only going to be doing the set dressing. I'm only going to be, moving the lights, or get on like a kind of a lower budget indie / under $5 million budget, and you can do a lot more and kind of express your creativity more, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, I feel you. Like, it sounds like specialization is really key on Hollywood, which is certainly almost the opposite for independent filmmaking.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I'm definitely more of a generalist, and like that's why I like directing, because you get to do so many different things. Where I did find kind of a hard time with these big budget movies because, I could do all these things. I could edit, I could do second unit directing, I could do the technology on the movie, and like you could do all these things. But if you're not in the union, and if you're not if you didn't work only in that thing, then it's kind of like, we have somebody else do that. Don't worry about it.
And after Deliver Us from Evil, I believe Scott's next project was Marvel's Doctor Strange.
I've spent so many years peering through time, looking for you.
We parted ways on Deliver Us from Evil, but then 6 months later he called me and said, hey, I'm up to direct Doctor Strange. Can you help me create one of your sizzle reels again? So, because we had created all those sizzle reels and stuff for his other movie pitches, but this time he kind of did it on steroids. He was like, no, I really want this movie. And he hired concept artists and animatic artists, storyboards, myself, and we started editing different pieces kind of to show like, okay, this is how the movie's going to feel. But then we were going to just do like one video like we did last time for Divergent. But then he's like, no, I want this to be bigger. And he wanted to be able to kind of skip around in different places as he read the room with at Marvel Studios. So we actually created this huge PowerPoint presentation that was like 1,000 slides. So he could actually click on different areas, and it was like it was almost like a computer program. So he could show them, hey, this is what Doctor Strange's superpowers are going to look like. This is what the locations are going to look like. This is, oh, hey, here, I even wrote this scene for you. And he and his writing partner, Cargill, wrote a whole scene for the movie even before being hired. And they kind of even plotted out the whole movie, which was very interesting because it came out quite different at the end. But yeah, we worked for a week or two on that, and then got to go to Marvel Studios, which was really cool. And yeah, he pitched it there, and the rest is history. Got the job.
One thing that I always want to know, like since you were working with Scott on pretty much like making sizzle reels for mostly studios, what is really important? What does the studio want to see?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and something that I wouldn't have really thought of unless I had been there and seen it, because he was really good. I think it's interesting because directing is probably 80% just about convincing somebody else you can direct their movie, and then the rest of the 20% is just making the movie, which is kind of crazy. But he was really good at the convincing people to attach him to the movie and get it made. And what he did a lot of times was, I think they wanted to kind of see as a director, what is your vision? So how do you envision the characters and character design? Are you going for like an old retro future, maybe like something that's like, oh, it's gonna have a 1930s theme, but be in the future, for sci-fi or something that's almost like Gattaca or something, or just kind of, or is it going to be in a color scheme? Is it going to be like Baz Luhrmann, like this super bright, super flashy Moulin Rouge kind of Romeo and Juliet movie, or is it going to be more like monochrome and very almost like black and white? So they kind of want to just get like, what is your sense of style? What's your camera work going to be like? Is it going to be very locked off? And as you get bigger up in directing, you kind of start to have a style, so they kind of understand. But sometimes he would say he wanted the like fight scenes to be like, while the action being super fast, the camera movement was very planned out. So they want to know that. They also want to know what actors you think would be good in the role, unless they've already cast it. So kind of as a director, they want to see, okay, who would you cast in the movie? Just because I've seen so many movies and just kind of have all these movies in my head, I would start to pick out all these movies that would maybe have that feeling, and then kind of create something that, and it depends. Sometimes they just want like a 2-minute thing. So you create like a trailer that makes you feel like you're watching a different movie out of 15 other movies. Or like with Divergent and Doctor Strange, it was more like, or Divergent's like this 10-minute video, and he actually spoke over it. And yeah, those are the pieces. But I would say the main one thing that I took away from it all is that it's more about emotion. It's more about, you need to touch people emotionally. Like, you need to inspire them and make them believe you can make the movie and make them want to see your movie. Like, they have to leave the pitch and go like, wow, I have to give that person the movie because I want to see what they do with it. And I think that's, by the end of every pitch I ever heard him do, that was definitely one thing that I was kind of like, wow, that's, I want to see that movie. And he's inspired me to let him make it if I had the money,
Yeah.